I've owned 80 something cars since I was 16. I think I'm at like
What?
84 different cars, right? New, mainly old school, low riders. I used to drag race. When buying a car that I really like, I would prefer the previous owner to let me know if the transmission is slipping on third gear when it warms up because the solenoid is going bad. And if I like that car and I want this particular car, because that's what I've been looking for, I like how it looks, I've been wanting one, informing me that the transmission is having some issues. I may not know anything about transmissions, but I'll still purchase the car if I like the car enough. And then I'm informed as to what I need to work on, learn about, go educate myself on, or go find a mechanic that can fix it for me. Now, I think what I'm saying to you is what you're asking us to do is become good mechanics to identify a bad transmission before you while you're test driving. You may not want to ask the owner, how the engine. You may not want to ask those questions or when you don't need the Carfax, because we should become better mechanics and be able to hear that knock or identify that slip or know to let the car warm up and drive for at least 5 miles to discover if the transmission is going to slip on you or not. And then you can address it at that time. And I'm simply saying, why don't we just ask the owner flat out, hey, I really like this car and I'm probably going to buy it anyway, but is there anything I should know? So I can be well aware and prepared. So when I do, I won't take a trip I won't take a trip to Tahoe to go snowboarding. And next thing you know, we didn't broke down on the side of the road because I discovered something later that I wish I knew before we took this trip.
So let me ask the question along those same lines. If I decide I want to buy this car and they disclose to me, like, let's say you bought a car and they disclose to you that it's got some transmission problems. With you with that knowledge, when you're driving that car, what are some of the tells or the signs that that car actually has a transmission problem? Like what would you see? Like what would happen?
What I would pay attention to what the previous owner exactly told me, and I probably wouldn't drive it too far or too hard until I make sure that gets fixed, or at least start working on it.
But do you know any?
But if I don't know, I'm gonna take a trip to Vegas.
I'm on board with you knowing that there's a transmission problem, but the question is though, if I'm just driving, like what would I feel in the car? How would the car operate that would tell me there's a possible issue with the transmission?
It wouldn't pick up speed.
Okay.
Or it slip. When you expect to go from second to third, it don't, and it catches, and you get in an argument trying to get to fourth gear, and you're like, what the fuck? Where'd this come from?
Okay, so you know some of the things to expect as a result of
a normal operating car problem. Yeah. So, I know how a normal operating car should run.
Perfect. So I'm only simply saying that in knowing that getting a person to disclose the trauma that they've been through, let's at least know what the symptoms are. How can we tell? Because we tend to look at it through one lens, and our minds tend to automatically go to this person clenching up, this person, you not being able to sleep with that person because whatever. I'm saying that there's a lot more to it, because some people they might disclose to you that they've been abused, and you find out all the information about it, but you don't know, and she doesn't know how it even impacts them in their daily life. A lot of women don't know how abuse has impacted them in relationships, in their daily life, in their daily way of functioning. But I'm saying if we as men know what are just some of the things that we can expect, like this person might become hypersexual, this person might be hypervigilant, this person might be develop an unhealthy attachment to where they become really clingy. This person, if we ever have a fight, she gets really paranoid that I'm going to leave her now. Like, what are just as men knowing some of these behaviors, knowing that can relate to abuse. We don't need to know how to handle it, because as long as we see what these symptoms are, now we can say, all right, let's go to therapy and, tell the counselor, this is what I'm seeing. This is what, we're dealing with. How can you help us?
All right. So Shan, just a side question real quick. Out of those 84 cars, how many of them were acquired legally? I'm joking. We know you from Compton. That's why I'm like 84 cars. God, I know how you got them shit. My man Marcus, man. What's going on? What you got on it?
Okay.
On mute.
Marcus with that gaming mic.
Yeah.
Glow in the dark. There you go.
Yes, sir. I think that y'all been having a great discussion on this. So I looked up something. They did a study on the amount of women who like working in the strip clubs that have been sexually assaulted. In one of the studies, it was like 100%. Yeah. What they said, 1 in 6 women have been sexually assaulted, and it's been reported in their lifetime. So I think there's the hypersexuality. I think that's a real thing. And in my interactions with women, I've kind of noticed that trend too, with women who've been hypersexual, like immediately. If you have a chance to talk to them for a while, it usually turns out that there was some form of that type of trauma within their background at some period of time. And it's really hard for the average person. Like, because I kind of agree with Shan and Nelson, right? Because what I've been noticing is that some men nuance concepts and being able to communicate without being offensive. It's a hard line for some people to walk because they in some way view telling the truth as I have to be offensive because I'm being direct at you so you understand my exact intent. And they don't mean to be offensive, or they're not trying to hurt the person, but they believe that's the best way to deliver information. And in doing so, you end up hurting or triggering the person. I think that what Nelson is saying is about figuring out ways to recognize signs. And I think y'all highlighted the most common too, which would be the hypersexuality and being extremely like vigilant or seemingly hate men. Sometimes when the women come on the panels, I don't have a lot of smoke for them because I kind of feel like we may be looking at somebody that's a victim behind one of these incidents, and they require like extreme amounts of care when in dealing with that, because you don't want to spiral them to the point that maybe they commit self-harm, right? Because that's a real thing. I had a family member who dealt with something to this extent, so I have a soft spot specifically because I watched the trauma that she went through in trying to recover from the incident, right? When I talk about men being able to work with every woman, but it depends on the man, that's one of the things I'm highlighting, because it doesn't have to necessarily be sexual assault, but the trauma that she's experienced, you may not be equipped to deal with in order to walk her into a good place. Like Hank said, you should feel proud if she feels like sharing that with you because some level of trust has been built. And if you're not competent to handle that level of openness in a way that does not trigger her or make the situation worse, because I think one of the worst things that could happen is she open up about that, and then you be like, oh, you was assaulted, I'm out. Like, that would be a problem. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tricky line that got to be walked in order to do it tactfully while getting the answers as soon as possible without causing that person more harm than the initial incident. Yeah, I think there's different slots and ways we interact with women too. So you got the women that you just casually dating and it's just sexual, and the women that you are actually interested in having a real relationship with. Ironically, the people who are going to casually date you and just have sex are probably the people who have that type of trauma for the most part in a large scale. Yeah, it's a really, really sensitive thing. My heart go out to everybody that's been a victim of any of these extremely deplorable actions. And I my heart go out to you. As men, you kind of got to develop different styles and techniques in talking to people. And I know it's not for everyone, or everyone doesn't seem to have the same thing, but part of the leadership thing is communication. So we've got to learn different communication styles. I know it does not seem fair, but it really is what it is if we're going to interact with women and lead them anywhere.